after listening to the question about referendum, the 2014 general election, this constitution did not even meet the numbers in that election. It fell short of that referendum requirement. Does that have any effect on the validity of our document? Secondly, we can't even challenge this document in court. If we file it in court, the registry is not allowed to accept any challenge. That is according to the wordings of the Constitution itself. That makes the courts in Fiji for non-convenience. Is it open to the Attorney General to refer this to an international court of justice where determination of the validity of the whole document? And can that be an option apart from the ones that you already mentioned? I agree, this document is not well thought out. That was the first word to file a constitutional redress in 2030. The court couldn't make a judgment on that application of the constitutional redress until the Chief Justice passed away in 2020. 10 years is separated. Couldn't rule on it because the implications would be detrimental to the state. I deliberately filed it to show the Attorney General that this document is not good for the office. We are not rich enough. This country is not wealthy enough, especially these socio-economic rights that are in. Where will we get the funds for housing, for jobs, compulsory?
Thank you, Mr. Rayawa. Your question again, would you just repeat the question? So,
whether since this is now a forum non-convenience, the court in Fiji can be declared forum non-convenience. Can the Attorney General refer this to International Court of Justice to get declaration? There is another option to your
if I could just paraphrase what I understand the question. What Mr. Rayawa is talking about is there's a provision in the Constitution that says no court has jurisdiction to accept or hear a challenge to the Constitution itself. He is suggesting, well, he says that any challenge to the Constitution is not accepted by the registry. So getting into court practically to challenge it is a problem in Fiji, and you'd have to get past Section 15176 or whatever it is. And so Mr. Rao's question is, might an option be going to an international court of justice?
I'm not an international lawyer of any description, so I'm not really familiar enough with the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, but it would surprise me if it had jurisdiction over internal constitutional matters. But beyond that, the processes in that court take years. And it wouldn't be a very smart way to go. I think because what we're talking about here would probably be a reference much the same way as was done in the case I mentioned involving the judge and the public prosecutor. It would be a reference to the Supreme Court under the provisions of the Constitution, which are permissible for any constitutional matter. And I thought if the registry were to reject it, you could get an order from the Supreme Court telling them to go away and behave themselves. And if you go to the Supreme Court, given the attitude that the Supreme Court took in that recent case, this judgment of 28th of June, the Court's been quite critical of the Constitution. It's found that several provisions of the Constitution are meaningless. They're not in proper English, and they therefore had to interpret them. The Court expressed doubts about the process by which the Constitution was made. Now, these aren't binding rulings on the issue that were before the Court. They're more of the overtones, you understand. They're about their reasoning more generally. But if you go to the Court with a challenge to the validity of the Constitution, you're going with a challenge to the validity of any provision which stops you from questioning as well. So I'd say you learn very quickly if the Attorney General or the Cabinet, because it's the Cabinet too that can initiate a constitutional case, I think you'd find very quickly whether the court was willing to be involved, and I'd be surprised if they were.
Thank you, Professor. There's a gentleman up the back who would like to ask you a question.